Morning, Judge.
May it please the court, my lady, morning.
Yes, before we call the matter on record, Nelly, I see, where is the interpreter? I don't see the interpreter here.
Judge is with me. I just wanted to call out the matter first and then I'll
Okay,
swap
it's
the
just
screen.
that I was worried. Okay, you can place the matter on record.
Thank you, Judge. Today is the 13th of May, 2022. Calling the matter of life Esidimeni Inquest, case number I-001 of 2021. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much. The witness can be warned.
Mokgosinyana wa gopotsa gore o tsere ka le go bua nnete fela maiso a utlwagetse
Go utlwagetse.
I understand and confirm my lordship, my ladyship.
Okay. She has been reminded that she's still under oath.
Yes,
Thank you, Ms. Merritt.
Thank you, my lady. Ma'am, can you please explain the process of the transfer of patients before the marathon project? How did Mosego receive patients?
Me mokgosinyana a ko re tlhalosetse ka tsela e ne e latelwa kgotsa e latelwang ga di balwetsi ba transferiwa ga golo ka mabapi le di marathon project tse
Prior to.
or prior
Yes.
o pele ga
the marathon
project e ba ne tsela e ne e salwa morago ke efe
Social worker ya ko life Esidimeni e ne e founela Mosego e botsa gore re na le dibete tse kae.
Prior to this marathon project, a social worker will call Mosego home to inquire as to how many beds we have.
Yes.
Ga re mmoleletse gore re na le tse kae re bolela gape le director ya rona gore life Esidimeni e founile e botsa ka gore re na le dibete tse kae ba batla go romela di patient.
We will also inform our director that we were contacted by a life Esidimeni to inquire as to how many beds we have so that they can transfer patients.
Re etsa appointment le social worker gore re etla re tlo bona di patient tseo.
We will then make an appointment with the social worker so that we can also come and see those patients.
Re be ha re tla ya ge ko life Esidimeni ko warding e go the re tla kry di patient re kopane le sister wa ko warding eo re mmolele gore re tlile re tlo bona di patient tse le reng re di tshwanetse di transferelwe mo rona.
We will then visit life Esidimeni and meet with the nurse who will take us to the ward in which these patients would be kept.
Yes.
Di patient di tla tliswa re nna mo tafoleng ba re file le di file tsa di patient tse ba ba tlisa wa go tla dependa ka number gore re ile re na le di bete tse kae nako engwe o tla kry le gore ke di patient tse pedi or nako engwe ke patient A1.
Depending on the number of beds that we will be having, the patients will be brought and we'll sit with the patients around the table with their files.
Re nna le sister wa yone ward eo le ene a nne teng.
The sister who would be assigned for that ward will also be with us.
Ha re dumelana ka patient or ka di-patient tseo re bolella le social worker gore ba ke bone ba ba siameng ba ba ka nneng ba tla ko mosego.
When we would reach the agreement with the sister in relation to this patient or patients, we will then also communicate back to the social worker that those patients we can receive them at Mosego home.
Re be re boa ro bolella director wa rona gore re tswa ko life Esidimeni re tso bona di-patient tse ba reng ba ka di tlisa mo mosego.
We would then go back and report to our director that we had visited Life Esidimeni and met with the patients that would be transferred to Mosego home.
Re be re founela kore re be re founela social worker yaanong re etsa appointment gore di-patient di ka tla leng ko rona ko mosego.
We will thereafter call the social worker to make an appointment with the social worker and inform the social worker as to when we would be ready to receive the patient at Mosego home.
Ha re dumelane ka di-patient tseo, Life Esidimeni o tla ba tlisa ka transport ya ko Life Esidimeni.
When we reach the agreements about the patients, then Life Esidimeni will therefore transport the patients with using their own transport to Mosego home.
Patient tse or yona eo e tla tla le social worker le nurse wa ko warding e patient e tswang ko teng.
A patient or patients would be brought with a social worker together with the nurse of the ward on which the patient was kept.
O tla tla a tshwere formo formo ya gore o tlo nna le rona matsatsi a makae re mo observer.
Ke patient o tlang le form.
E tla e tshwere ke social worker.
Okay. And the social worker will bring a form that we will fill in, and the form that will also state that we will be observing this patient for a certain period.
Ba ne ba nna le rona for matsatsi a 30.
The patients will actually stay with us for 30 days.
A tla gape a tshwere ID.
They will also bring the identity document.
A tla gape a tshwere le dipilisi tsa dinwang.
They will also bring the patient with the medications on which the patient would be taking.
Medication eo ne nna yone ya matsatsi a 30 a tlo a nnang ko mosego.
The medication would be for the 30 days period that the patient will be staying with us at Mosego.
ga ne re sa dumelane le go gore patient e sa itshwara sentle ko mosego ne re founela social worker re mo tlhalosetsa gore ka gore re na le di-rules mo mosego gore di-patient tshwanetse di itshware yang o ka re o tla re palla ebe social worker ba boa ba tla ba tlo motsang.
When we will be having a patient that is troublesome and misbehaving, we will call the social worker and report to the social worker that we cannot handle the behavior of this patient because we have certain rules that we need to follow and adhere to. Then the social worker will then come and take the patient from our care.
Ha patient itshwere sentle a week kore beke before kgwedi fela re founela social worker gape re mmolela gore o re ka nna patient ya rona mo mosego.
If the patient behaves well, the patient will then stay with us, but the last week of the month, we will communicate with the social worker and inform the social worker that we are happy with the patient, they can stay with us.
Ga matsatsi ao a 30 ao a fitlha ba tlisa gore ba romela dipilisi tsa di-patient discharge form prescription ya gagwe gore ba romela le di-form tse ding tse di ka nnang teng tse di tshwanetseng gore di tle ba di romela.
Okay, ba romela dipilisi, ba romela prescription, ba romela
di form
discharge form.
Discharge form, prescription discharge form. Di form tse dingwe ya ka bo di periodical.
Okay. But at the end of the month, they will then send the medication of the patient, the prescription, and the discharge form, together with other forms, including the periodical form.
Rona patient kore patient anong re tla itse gore ke patient ya rona mo mosego.
Then
patient ya mo mosego.
Then that patient will be admitted as a full patient at Mosego home.
Re tsa prescription ena re romela ko clinic.
We will take that patient and send the patient to the clinic.
A bonwe ko clinicing gape a bonwe le ke ngaka ya malwetse a tlhogo.
The patient will be examined at the clinic and will also be evaluated by a psychologist.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I received the information that I was looking for at this point.
Just before that, are we talking about a psychologist or a psychiatrist? If you can, yes, can you clear that with I think the interpreter said a psychologist.
Mem go senyana ga o re batho ba malwetse a tlhogo re bua ka di psychologist or di psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
The patient will be evaluated by the psychiatrist, my lady.
Thank you very much. Continue.
Thank you, my lady. Now, ma'am, if we go back to page 37494.
37494, yes.
Thank you, my lady. It's exhibit W23. You classified certain patients. There were 9 patients that you classified as non-marathon deaths.
Wa gopola ge gore mo filing e re buang ka yona ya 37494 gona le balwetsi ba ileng gore o ba kwetse ka fo tlase jaaka ba malwetsi a ileng gore ke ba non-marathon ba ile gore ba tlhokofetse ba se ka mo tlase ga marathon. Wa e bona file yo Mateo? Yes, I can see that file.
Thank you. Now, when these patients were admitted at Masego, was the process followed that you just explained, or was a different process followed?
So memo Hosian balwetsi ba ileng gore ba kwetse ka fo tlase ga non-marathon. A tsela ene le ba amogela ka yona jaaka o fetsa gore tlhalosetsa gore ne le latelela ditsela tse di feng ene e dirisiwa le mo go bona. Yes, we were following the same procedure.
Okay, and when the patients were transferred from Life Esidimeni during the marathon project, what process was then followed?
Ga balwetsi ba ne ba referela ko go lona go tswa ko Life Esidimeni ka nako eo ya marathon project. What was the question again?
When the patients were transferred from Life Esidimeni during the marathon project, what process was then followed for their admittance at Masego home?
Ene re ga le ba amogela ko le ba admita ko Masego home ne le latelela ditsela tse di feng?
Ore director ya rona ine tla a re bolela gore molaetsa ke gore dilo tsa di patient ko Life Esidimeni.
We will get a message from our director or the instructive from the director that we need to collect the patients from Life Esidimeni.
Una tla re bolela gore ka moso le tle di elo batlang.
The director will tell us that we need to fetch the patient the following day.
So go tla ya ka gore ke di patient tse ka tse re lo di tsayang. Number ya gore ba ba kae di patient tseo.
It will also depend on the number of the patient on which we are supposed to fetch.
Re ne re founela transport. Monga transport gore ka je ko o tle ka gore re lo tsa di patient ko Life Esidimeni o tle mo Masego re tla tsamaya le wena ka transport ya gago.
We will therefore call the transport owner and inform the transport owner to come at Masego home so that we can travel together with the transport owner to fetch patients from Life Esidimeni.
O tla tla ge ka letsatsi le latelang ka ga re editse appointment le ene re tsamaye le ke ne go tsamaya nna ke tla tsa ka go ya ka gore ba ba kae ke tla tsa manesa mabedi a mararo re tsamaya re ya ko Life Esidimeni.
Okay. After we had secured the appointment with the transport owner, then the transport owner will come the following day. And myself, together with either 2 or 3 nurses, we will travel together with the transport owner, depending on the number of patients that we are going to fetch.
Ha re fitlha ko Life Esidimeni ba tla re bontsha gore ko ko batho ba department ba ntseng teng.
Okay. Upon arrival at Life Esidimeni, they will show us as to where the departmental members are seated.
Re ba bolelle gore re tswa ko Mosego re tlo tsa di-patient.
We will then inform them that we are from Mosego home and we are here to fetch the patients.
Did you have an interview with any of these patients before you took them to Mosego?
Balwetsi ba ne le bana le di puisano le bone di interview pele ga le ka ba tsaya le ba isa ko Mosego home mme Mkhosinyana. No.
And
Just
who
a sec-
decided which
just a
patients
second,
had to
Miss
come to
Mary.
your... Sorry, my lady.
Continue.
Who decided which patients had to go to Mosego home?
E ne nna mang yo tsang tshwetso ya gore ke balwetsi ba ba feng ba ba tshwanelang gore ba isiwe ko Mosego home?
A ke itse gore ke mang.
I do not know.
And when you received these patients, did you receive anything with the patients?
Ga le ba tsaya balwetsi ba a gona le sengwe se le gore ne le ba ga ba le nela balwetsi ba le nela le tsona for balwetsi ba?
Ha re tsaya balwetsi ba ne re kry-a re fiwa pasa le dipilisi tsa kgwedi.
Okay. They will give us the identity document of the patient together with the 30 days period medication for the patient.
Ee.
Did you receive
If
any
it will-
periodical report? Sorry.
O no batla gore mme Mkhosinyana?
E be ba re bolela gore le tla tla ge le tlo tsa dilo tse di nyaka di-prescription, dilo tse di tshwanelegileng letsatsi le le latelang.
They will then tell us that we will come the following day to collect prescription and other relevant document or whatever that is in relation to the patient.
Did you receive these documents the following day?
Yaanong mo letsatsing le le latelang le ne le di neelwa dilo tse di tlhokagalang tsa molwetsi.
Ne ba tla ba re fa di-prescription di-discharge gore ba tla re founela gore tla yang dilo tse di siame re di tseye.
Yes, they will give us the prescription letters and the forms, everything that is in relation that we should come and collect.
Now, ma'am, did you have that 30-day period to return some of these patients if they didn't oblige with your rules and regulations?
Me a ne le fiwa malatsi a 30 a gore le tlhokomele balwetsi ba me mo malatsing a 30 ga ile gore ga ba sale morago melao ya lena if they don't oblige what
With the rules and the regulations of Mosego home.
le ga ile gore ga ba sale morago melao ya lona le dipelo tsa ko Mosego home.
Ha.
Ga.
Ne go sena re bolelwe gore re ka ba busa.
Okay. We were not told that we can return the patient.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, your license, what type of patients were you able to receive? according to your license?
Go ya ka license ya lena, ke balwetsi ba ba feng ba le tshwanetseng gore le ka ba amogela?
Re ne re amogela di-patient tse di tshwerweng ke bolwetse ba tlhogo. Gape ba fitileng dingwaga tse 60.
Okay. We were accepting patients who are having mental illness or are over 60 years of age.
And did you receive these patients from Life Esidimeni during the marathon project?
Ka nako ya marathon project, balwetsi ba le ne le ba tsaya le ba amogela go tswa ko Life Esidimeni. Yes.
Now, ma'am, did you have any struggles or problems after you received these patients from Life Esidimeni?
Le ne le nna le mathata a le kopanang le ona morago ga gore le amogele balwetsi ba go tswa ko Life Esidimeni.
Mathata e ne ka nna a gore thata ne le gore ba tlwaetse go tsuba ka nako e nngwe le nngwe bone ba rata gore rona re na le melao ya rona e re bang gore ka nako e itseng go a tsubiwa ka nako e itseng go a tsubiwa.
Okay. The challenge that we normally face would be they were used to smoking at any time, but now at our at Mosego home we had a certain time that we set aside for smoking breaks.
Did you have sufficient food, bedding, clothing, and facilities for the patients?
Le ne le na le didiriswa tse di lekaneng for balwetsi ba lona jaaka dijo, dibete, le dilo tse e leng gore balwetsi ba tla di tlhoka. Yes, we had.
Now, ma'am, if you can indicate the death rate of patients before the marathon project per year, how would you indicate that to the court?
Ga o ka re lekanyetsa kgotsa wa re neela dikai tsa maso a le nnileng le ona pele ga projeke e ya marathon, maso a lebileng le ona ka jara?
E ne ka nna bo 5 or 6.
Palo ya batho ba ka nna ba le batlhano kgotsa tshelela.
Nako nngwe ra nna le maso a bone.
Okay, we would have about 5 or 6 patients that would die during the period.
Okay. And the patients that you received during the marathon project, were they physically healthy patients?
Balwetsi ba ileng gore le ba amogetse ka nako ya marathon period, a ga o ba tlhalosa o tla re ke balwetsi ba ileng gore ba ne ba itekanetse mo mebeleng ya bona?
Ba bang ne o tla kry-a ba bang ne ba sa kgone go tsamaya ba le mo ba tsamaya ka di-wheelchair.
We would have patients that will be wheelchair bound. Ba bang
ba bang gore ba le ke tla re ba frail ke tla re frail.
The frail.
So they were frail patients. They were.
Yes.
They were. Okay.
Weakly, they were weak.
Ne ba ke tla re frail ke gore
Bokoa thata.
e seng bokoa thata.
Go tsofala thata.
Ba bane ba tsofetse dija.
Frailty.
Ba bang
Okay. And we receive also patients who were very old.
Now, before the marathon project,
Yeah,
that you also
just before you you continue, Ms. Marot, I'm sorry to interject you. Mrs. Mokosinyana, this question, the question that was asked was whether these patients that you received at Mosego during the marathon project, would you say they were healthy? It relates to you on your own assessment when you saw those patients. If just when you observed them, when you were seeing them, what would you say to the court? How were they? Did they look healthy according to you?
Potso e tlhomilweng mme Mogosinyana ke gore o tlhalose gore wena ga o amogela balwetse ba o ka tlhalosetsa lekgotla gore a ba ne ba le mo maemong a itekanetseng a botshelo kgotsa ka pono ya gago le ka go ba tlhatlhoba ga gago o fitlhetse gore ba jang mo ka bokoa ba mmele wa bone.
Ne ke ba bona ba se bokoa ka gore ba ne ba kgona go itsamaisa ene le ba ne ba tsamaya ba le mo di-wheelchair ga o ba sheba ne ba shebega ba le healthy.
Okay. These patients were looking healthy. Even though some of them could not walk, they were wheelchair bound, but they appeared to be healthy.
Just a second. Continue, Ms. Merritt.
My lady, Advocate Pitlela is raising his hand.
Yes, Mr. Pitlela.
Morning, my lady. Unfortunately, I'm having connectivity problems, so the court will bear with me on that.
We can't even see you. I'm not sure if we're going to hear you. Continue. We can't hear you at all, Mr. Pitlela. We can't hear you. Mr. Pitlela, we can't hear you.
Maybe yes, I'm struggling. I got kicked out. Can the court?
My lady, I just received a message from Advocate Pitlela indicating that he has connectivity issues and that he was kicked out several times.
I don't know if we can ask him to check if he can get maybe move to another venue. I don't know. Because this evidence is very important. He needs to be part of the proceedings. Maybe we can adjourn for a few minutes. Mr. Where is Mr. Late? If he can check with him.
I will as well, my lady.
Okay, let him get a proper place where he can connect so that we can proceed. Can Can we take a 10-minute break just to allow Mr. Pitlela to sort out his connectivity? You can just warn the witness, Ms. Mosejo. Mogajane. Thank you.
Mme Mogosinyana, re tla emisa metsotsonyana e ka nna lesome gore re ikhusenyana le wena o kgone go ikhusane. Re kopa gore o gopole gore o santsane o le ka fo tlase ga kano, ga o bue sepe se se diragalang mo dipuisanong tse re leng mo go tsona. A utlwagetse maetso? Understood, my lady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As the court pleases.
May it please the court, my lady.
You can stretch your legs a bit.
Lady, I see he is part of the meeting. I haven't received any messages that he has further problems.
Is he? Mr. Pichela, are you there?
I don't know,
Mr. Pichela?
yes, my video is on. I don't know if I'm invisible or what.
I can hear you, but I haven't.
my video and
I
sound
can't
are
see
on.
your face. Can you follow the proceedings, Mr. Pichela? Should we proceed now?
Can your ladyship see me?
I can't see you, but what I'm concerned with now, can you follow the proceedings?
No, I can't. It's once if I'm cut off, I'm kicked out, and there's no way I can follow.
Yes, but now, as we speak now, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, my lady.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the witness. Just indicate where you have got problems in case you encounter problems, please.
Okay, I will do so, my lady.
Okay.
The only thing before we were interrupted by technology was I just wanted to raise concerns with the general nature of the questions that are being asked. My understanding is we've got a specific list of deceased persons who this witness can testify to. Now, when questions are being posed with reference to life Esidimeni, they are posed in general to say were there files, but not with reference to any specific person in particular, and that is unfair, my lady. It was now creates a wrong impression.
Can the witness step aside for now? Yes, okay, continue.
Because my understanding is the answers that are being solicited, they paint a picture as if this witness knew of all the patients that were from life Esidimeni. I would request that questions be to specific witnesses, with specific patients, those that she has admitted that she has worked on and she has assisted. So she will know if they came with files or not, but not in general.
Miss Marriott? Before I hear you, can I hear first who say the others who want to say something with regard to this? Anybody who wants to make submissions with regard to the issue raised by Mr. Pichela?
My lady, we have no comments from the side of Dr. Manamela.
Okay, thank you. I see there is Mr. Pinar. I will recognize Mr. Pinar first before I go to Mr. Profi. Mr. Pinar?
May it please the court, my lady, my submission is quite brief and simple. I believe each of the counsels will have the opportunity to cross-examine the evidence that's now been presented in chief, albeit on a wide level, if I can refer to it as such. But whoever the counsels are, when they have the opportunity of cross-examination, they can move to the specifics if they deem it meet or appropriate, my lady.
Thank you very much, Mr.
May it please the court, my lady.
Mr. Profi, and okay, there is Mr. Van Bergen. You can go first, Mr. Van Bergen.
Thank you, my lady. My lady, I have sympathy with Mr. Pichlela's objection that the evidence was in general terms, but I think one must distinguish in this particular case the evidence given by this witness, as I understand it, pertains specifically to patients who were transferred to Mosego home.
Yes.
So it is limited, as I understand, to Mosego patients or patients received by Mosego home. That's the first issue, my lady. Then secondly, if one looks at the affidavits that were handed in yesterday as exhibits W1 to, I can't remember how many there were, in each and every affidavit pertaining to a specific patient, this witness testified as to the her assessment. She says, for example, in respect of Mr. Hartman, she says, I assessed the patient or deceased on arrival at Mosego. As he was already assessed at Life Esidimeni and our road trip to Mosego, there were no hassles, we arrived safely. And I submit, my lady, that the particularity that Mr. Pishlela requires is to be found in those affidavits. As your ladyship pleases.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say something? I think that has been covered. Like, can I hear you, Mr. No, before I come to Mr. Pishlela, there was Mr. Profi.
As the court pleases, my lady, I've raised this issue multiple times, that in respect of the general evidence given, it places the NGOs and its representatives in a difficult position as to if one answers or if one doesn't answer. And then if you do answer, the evidence leader will present you with an objection in respect of it doesn't have any relevance pertaining to your client. So, my lady, if my lady has a regard to the former Judge President's decision, he had the same issue in respect of the general evidence given to in respect of the NGO. So I disagree with Mr. van Bergen when he says that the evidence in the statements gives Mr. Priscilla what he requires. It merely states that she had assessed, and now we have the general evidence that they were healthy. So if we leave it there, it then says that she assessed and everyone that she assessed was healthy, and that could not very well be the facts before the court. So I submit that it's necessary that we get the particularity that Mr. Priscilla needs, because we can't just sit with general evidence in respect of the users at Mosego home.
Thank you, Mr. Profi. Anybody else before I go back to Mr. Pishlela? Before I go to, I think there is still Miss Marriott to respond. And then from there, if anybody is here, then I would like to hear anybody before I go back to Mr. Pishlela. Miss Marriott, you may proceed.
Thank you, my lady. I'm in agreement with Advocate Pienaar as well as Advocate van Bergen. The witness's statements were clear in respect of her evaluation and what documentation and so forth was received during the transfer. I actually wanted to make a point further with my next question, the reason why I asked those questions. Okay. So, and further there to my lady, it's my respectful submission that the representatives of the family, should they have an inquiry or a problem pertaining to the transfer from Life Esidimeni to Mosego, they have an opportunity to cross-examine in respect of those aspects.
Okay. Mr. Pishlela, if there is nobody.
My lady, I think my objection was captured quite adequately by Advocate Profi. The issue that I have is there was no reference to anyone in particular.
That's how I understood you myself. Yes.
Now, if the courts, if it said that we are only now dealing with those patients that are on the list, then obviously I would not find any objection in that.
Okay.
But I was just concerned that we are now talking about Life Esidimeni in general terms, but with no specific reference to the patients on that list, my lady.
No, if I may, Mr. Pishlela, if I understood the evidence of this witness and the questions, the way they were posed to the witness, they relate to patients that were transferred from Life Esidimeni to Mosego. And if you hear her evidence, she has been involved. She has been involved. And if you go to the affidavits that were submitted yesterday in the annexures, the Ws from W1, in all fairness, if you can read that, you can see that in respect of each and every patient, she tries to explain as to what happened. Now, can we leave Miss Marriott to continue with her cross-examination? And I don't think, as you have indicated to the court, I think what Mr. Profi has submitted is different from what we are saying now. It's not. I don't think he understood you, because he thinks you want particularity in respect of each witness, and he thought these were general questions, and I disagree with him that these were general questions, given the nature of the witness, the evidence of this witness is different from what he has referred to previously. So I don't think your objection is sustainable. Can we leave Ms. Marriott to continue? Ms. Marriott, continue.
As I could please, my lady.
Yes.
I do not see the interpreter, my lady.
Can you check, Nelisiwe? Where is the interpreter?
I am here, my lady. I'm trying to open. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
As the court pleases. Now, ma'am, you mentioned that you received some frail patients. I just wanted to know, before the marathon project, did Masego also receive frail patients? Or the other word that was used was weakly patients?
Come again?
The interpreter used weakly as a description for frail, my lady. I just wanted to know if prior to the marathon project that Masego Home also received frail patients.
Memo Hosiana, Anna, Masego Home, Lilela amogela balwetsi ba eleng gore ba bokoa ba frail ya ka o buile pejana.
Pejana ne re ya re lo ba bona di-patient tsena.
Gale a ba amogela ko Masego no le sa amogele balwetsi ba bantse jalo.
Ha re ya ha go na le mathata ka patient ne re sa ba tse di-patient. A tshwanang le bokoa ba patient.
Go irang para go tshwana le bokoa ba patient bo irang.
Ke re ga re ne re ya ko life Esidimeni re lo ba bona di-patient. Ne re sa tse di-patient ba bokoa ne re sa ba tse di-patient tseo. Ne re bua le bona gore o re ka se mo tseo.
Okay. When we would be visiting Life Esidimeni to check on the patient, when we find out that the patients are weakly or frail, we would not take patients who are not of good health.
Now, do you remember any of the patients that was transferred
just a second, if I just want to clarify this with the witness.
Please.
Is that your evidence that prior to the marathon project, these frail patients, you never received them at Masego?
A re go utlwa sentle maitse gore pele ga a project marathon project le ne le sa ba amogele balwetsi ba eleng gore ba frail ko Masego Home. That is correct, my lady.
You went there at Life Esidimeni, and then once you look at the patients or you assess them and realize that they are frail, you refuse to take them. You told the people at Life Esidimeni that you are not taking them given their conditions. Is that what you're saying?
E ne e tle re ga le ya ko life Esidimeni le assessa balwetse ba le bona gore ba frail ga ba bokoa then le be le sa ba tseye le ba bolela ba life Esidimeni gore ba bona ga re ke se ba tseye. That is correct, my lady.
You can pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, my lady. Now, ma'am, the names that you amended or attached to your document on page 37495 to 37496, was any of these deceased people frail according to your observation?
Go ya ka lenaneo la maina a ileng gore o a tlhagisitse mo listing e ya 3749, which numbers are you on?
495?
495 le 494 le 495. Balwetsi bao ba ba
495 to 37496.
okay. Mo lenane le le tlhagelela mo 37495 go fitlhela ko 37495. A o raya gore balwetsi ba le ba assessitse gore a ba frail le ka ba amogela go tswa ko life Esidimeni kgotsa le ba amogetse fela?
The question is, Miss, before the witness responds, Miss Marriott, please assist me if I didn't get your question correctly. Your question was, if she looks at the list that appears on case line pages 3745 to page 37496, was any of these deceased people as referred to in this list frail according to her?
Yes, my lady.
Okay.
Can you interpret it, Mr. Interpreter?
Okay. Mo listing e tlhagelela mo 37495 le 37496 memgosinyana. Go ya ka wena go na le batho ba ileng gore ba frail go ya ka pono ya gago kgotsa ka assessment ya gago?
Was any of them frail at the time?
Ga le ba amogela ba ne go ya ka pono ya gago ga le ba amogela a ba ne ba le frail ga o ba assess?
Johannes Dongwane.
O na le frail?
Le go o na thusiwa ka go tsamaya.
Okay. I would point out to Johannes Hlongwane as one of the patients who were frail because he was also assisted with walking.
Is that patient number 5 on page 37495?
Ke molwetsi o wa botlhano mo page mo listing e mo 37495. Ke ena o? Bua ka ena Johannes Hlongwane o.
Bua ka ene.
That is correct.
Any other patients?
O mongwe wa balwetsi mo listing e?
Ke bua le ka Rebecca Hlabathi.
Rebecca Hlabathi also.
Yes, what was the condition?
Matsapa a gagwe ne leng?
Le ene na le mo wheelchair.
She was wheelchair bound.
Any other patient?
O mong gape mo balwetsing ba?
Ke one fela ba babedi ba ne.
Those are the two names that I can recognize.
Okay.
Tla ke bone.
Can I also check?
My lady, I'm not sure whether the witness is now finished. Who wants to check?
Can we give her the chance,
Eh.
please? Let's not rush her.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Miss Mogosinyane, do you want to say something?
O feditse mme Mogosinyana, o ikgotsofaditse ka go lebella maina sentle.
Ke kgotsofaditse.
O siame ga gona sepe se o se tshwaelang.
Ke kgotsofaditse.
I'm satisfied with the names so far.
So the two being Johannes Dlongwana and Rebecca Hlabati are the ones that you saw were frail at the time, according to you.
Ke balwetse ba babedi fela ba o ba tlhalositseng jaaka Johannes Dlongwane le Rebecca Hlabati ba o ba tlhalosang ba ne ba le frail. That is correct, my lady.
Thank you.
Thank you, my lady. Now, ma'am, if we go to page 37494. That is the non-marathon deaths.
Re mo tsebeng eo ya 37494 e kwetseng ko setlhogo ko godimo se re non-marathon deaths. Mo go yona Maitso?
Ke mo go yona.
I can see the page.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if we go through these deceased, only number 4, Paul Kubela, and 5, Sipho Mutlawotse, the other patients passed away within a year's time. Do you see that?
Yes.
O bona balwetse ba le babedi mo lenaneong le e leng Paul Kubela le Sipho Mutlawotse. Are you saying these patients passed a year after?
Yeah, they passed away about more than a year when they were at Masego, admitted at Masego.
But
the other patients died within a year at Masego House.
Can you clarify this question before the interpreter interprets? It's not clear, Miss Marriott. If you can rephrase it properly, please. I also don't understand your question. You say except for number 4 and number 5, Paul Kubela and Sipho Mutlawotse.
The patients that remains passed away within a year that they were admitted at Masego House.
Okay.
Ntle le balwetse ba babedi ba e leng Paul Kubela le Sipho Mutlawotse. Balwetse ba bang bo botlhe ba e leng gore ba tlhagelela mo lenaneong le ba tlhokafetse mo sebakeng sa ngwaga.
When they were
and also morago ga gore ba amogelwe ko Masego Home.
Mosego.
Mosego Home. I'm sorry about that.
Yes. And Alfred passed away a year and about 5 months. Yes.
Alfred o tlhokofetse morago ga jara le dikgwedi di le 5. A go jalo?
Go jalo.
That is correct.
Thank you, my lady. I just wanted to highlight that. I have no further questions for the witness.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether you still want to take a short adjournment for the tea break, and then can we resume at 25 minutes past 11?
As the court pleases, my lady, then it will give the opportunity to the person that will cross-examine next.
Yes. Can the witness be warned, and while we take the tea adjournment?
Mogosinyana, re ya ko nakong e khutshwane ya tee, re kopa gore o gopole gore o tserekano go bua nnete tse e leng gore tsweletse ka tsona mo tshekong e ke felela mo teng ga tsheko e ga re di bue le ba bang ko ntle. Ga utlwagetse Maitso? I understand, my lady.
She has been sitting throughout. If she can just walk around just to stretch her legs. So so that when we come back, she shouldn't feel tired. The court will take a tea adjournment. We'll resume at 11:25. Thank you.
Yes, court please.
Go leke jalo gore o tlolle maoto mme mogosinyana akere gore o sa lapa.
May it please the court, my lady.
Okay. The interpreter.
I'm here, my lady.
If I may, I haven't seen Mr. Martin for some time. I don't know whether Mr. Watbringel is present, whoever is present. Can I find out if they are ready to cross it? Do they have questions for the witness in cross-examination? Anybody from their team?
My lady, Sean van Heerden, no questions at this stage. If the position changes, we will inform the court. I'm just standing in for my counsel for this morning.
Okay, so there are no questions at this stage.
No question at this stage. Thank you very much, my lady.
Anybody from Mr. Wood's team who's present? Desmia?
Good morning. Yes, good morning, my lady. At this stage, we don't have any questions, but if anything arises, I will inform the court. I'm likewise standing in for Advocate Hodes this morning.
Mr. Pinaar?
May it please the court, my lady. No questions at this stage, but I would seek an indulgence. Should a need arise, I will request the court's indulgence in that regard, my lady.
Thank you. Mr. van Bergen?
Thank you, my lady. There is one aspect that I wish to take up with the witness. I have requested instructions on that issue. I have not yet received them. May my cross-examination stand over for the moment, please?
Thank you, Mr. van Bergen.
Thank you,
Ms.
my lady.
Hassim?
Thank you, my lady. I have a few questions for this witness.
Yes.
And they are a few general questions about Moseko Home and how many houses were made up in Moseko Home, and then some specifics with regard to the deaths.
Okay. Yes, you may proceed.
Good morning, Mrs. Mokgosinyana. My name is Adila Hassim, and I represent families of the deceased in this inquest.
Ke me Adila Hassim, a re ke yo mongwe wa babueledi ba ileng gore ba emetse maloko a baswi ba ileng gore ba tlhagelela mo lenaneong le. A utlwagetse mme Mokgosinyane?
A utlwagetse ma.
I understand.
Thank you. Mrs. Mokgosinyane, Moseko Home was made up of different houses, am I correct?
A go jalo gore Moseko Home e na le diphaposi tse di farologaneng?
Eh.
That is correct.
How many houses were there?
E na le diphaposi di le kae?
E na le diphaposi tse tharo tsa basadi.
It was consisting of 3 rooms for the females
and tse tlhano for banna.
And 5 rooms for males.
Ma'am,
Just a second, if I may, I think from the interpretation, I just want to understand this. Are you talking houses or rooms?
Ha a re bua ka diphapusi di le tharo o bua ka diphapusi as in phapusi bedroom kgotsa magae.
Ke bua ka dintlo.
Yes.
Okay, all right. It was consisting of 3 houses for female and 5 houses for males.
Thank you. And how many patients could each house accommodate?
Ntlo le ntlo e ne e kgona go tsaya balwetsi ba le bakae?
Dintlo tse ne di sa lekane.
Okay.
Tse ding go ya ka gore di-room di kae mo ntlong eo e kana kang. Tse ding dintlo.
Or Eric Fitisen. These houses when varying according to how big they are and how many rooms each house has.
How many patients could the smallest house take?
Mo ntlong e re reng e nnyane mo go tsona tso tsotlhe e ne o kgona gore e amogele balwetsi ba le bakae?
14.
14. The smallest of all the houses will at least accommodate 14 patients.
And the largest?
E tonna mo go tsona tso tsotlhe e ne o kgona go amogela balwetsi ba le bakae?
25.
It will accommodate at least about 25 patients.
And how many users did Mosego admit from Life Esidimeni in 2016?
How many what?
How many how many patients?
Okay. Ke balwetsi ba le bakae ba e leng gore mo jareng ya 2017?
2016.
Is it 2016? 2016. Ke balwetsi ba le bakae ba e leng gore Mosego home ile ya ba amogela go
I can't just remember.
I can't just remember. I don't recall how many.
Okay. In your evidence this morning, you described going to Life Esidimeni to collect patients. How many at a time would you collect?
Phakela ne re bua ka o no tlhalosa gore ne le tlele go Life Esidimeni le go tsaya balwetsi. So ga le go tsaya balwetsi ne le tsaya ba le bakae ka nako?
Nako core 5 mo letsatsing.
We would collect about at least 5 patients per day.
And before the marathon project, I just want to be clear that before the marathon project, you wouldn't collect that many users in one day.
Project, marathon project,
patients, you can say patients instead of users.
Oh, okay. Peleha marathon project nele sa amogele balwetsi ba nele sa tse balwetsi ba ba ka bang 5 ba go tswa ko Life Esidimeni.
Nere tsaba baba nere sa tseba
5.
If I may assist the witness, just listen to, I think you were interrupted, Miss Interpreter. Okay. The question, what counsel wanted to find out from the witness is whether before the marathon project, they would collect that number of patients per day, referring to 5. Would they take 5 patients per day? Was that your question, Ms. Asim?
I'm indebted to the court. Thank you, my lady.
Yes, if the message can be properly conveyed to the witness.
Pele ga marathon project e a le ne le tle le late balwetse ba ba ka nnang batlhano jaaka ne le dira ka nako ya project kgotsa ja
ne re tle re batse
pele ga project e. We would collect that number of.
Yes.
Thank you. And in your evidence this morning, you said that before the marathon project, the death rate per year was 5 or 6 patients. You recall that?
Pele ga marathon project e wa re dintsho e ne ka nna tse 5 kgotsa tse 6 mo lobakeng la jara. Wa gopola? I recall that.
So when we look at the dockets of the deceased at Mosego, we see that from the period 13 May 2016, which is when the first date was recorded, to 15 April 2017, when the last date was recorded, that 23 patients died.
Go ya ka docket e leng gore e amogetswe go tlhagelela gore go tloga ka di 13 tsa May 2016 ke ka letlha le leng gore go ile gwa simolola date ya ntlha mo leng gore go ile gwa simolola go kwalwa fatshe dintsho tse leng gore di nna teng. Then date ya mafelelo ya dintsho tse di ne di kwala mo fatshe ke di 15 tsa April 2017. And then gwa fitlhelwa gore mo nakong eo yo yotlhe go setse go na le dintsho tse di ka nnang 23.
Just hold it there. There is a hand here. Who's that? Yes, you may proceed if there is a hand. Is that an
My lady,
objection?
I apologize for interrupting, Madam Senior. My lady, it's my instruction that the basis of why we had asked for the directors to give evidence before this witness is that such questions in respect of the administration of Mosego can be asked to the directors. This witness was called in relation to the care that she gave the patients and not necessarily in relation to the administration of Mosego Home.
Can the witness step aside? Yes, is that all, Mr. Profi?
Yeah, but if I can just conclude the point that as far as it relates to...
Yes, I don't want you to repeat, we heard that.
Yes, as far as it relates to the administration of Mosego Home, the directors can come and testify.
I don't want you to repeat, you are repeating what you have said. That is why I asked whether that is all. Yes, I've captured your question. Can I hear, before I go to Ms. Hasim, anybody else who want to say something in relation to this? Ms. Merritt?
Thank you, my lady. It's my respectful submission that this question can be asked to this witness as she was privy to the information and the proceedings that occurred during this period of time. It's not an unfair question to the witness, and merely to object that she cannot testify pertaining to administrative issues, it's my respectful submission doesn't hold water.
Thank you. Anybody else before I go to Ms. Hasim? Thank you, Ms. Hasim. Your response?
Thank you, my lady. My lady, these questions are not about administrative issues. The questions are about the deaths that occurred at Mosego home, and this witness was closest to Mosego home as opposed to the directors who may not have been present on a daily basis. So I disagree that these are questions about administration. Secondly, the witness has already testified about the death rate, and I'm now putting to her a question about the specific deaths during this period.
Thank you very much. Mr. Profi, your reply?
My lady, the directors would be the ones to know in respect of the numbers, in respect of the numbers that were collected, in respect of the numbers that were collected from Life Esidimeni. They're the ones that have that information. So this witness does not know the relevant figures. So we then now going to a situation where the directors who have this information then have to now cross-examine this witness when they can just give the figures that is required, as they're the ones who sent their staff and they're the ones who compiled those figures. So they're the ones who liaise with the department and are the ones who in fact know and have this knowledge. So if she in fact fetched 5, whereas the directors will come and tell this court that on another occasion others were fetched, we are then just regurgitating unnecessary information when the source of the information can tell the court the correct figures, and the administration and the transferring of the users and the relevant numbers. Those are important for the court. So why not have those with that information come and tell the court the correct figures?
Thank you, Mr. Profi. I hear you, but I still feel that this witness can still answer the question. The question is allowed. You may proceed.
Thank you, my lady. The question was...
Can we call the witness, or the witness is back? Yes. Yes, you can continue.
Repeat the question.
Yes, you may.
For the period 13 May 2016, which is when the first death is recorded in this docket, to 15 April 2017, which was the last death that was recorded in this docket for Mosego, 23 patients died.
The 13th of May 2016, ke date ya ntlha mo e leng gore dintsho di le tsa simolola di recordiwa mo docketeng gagolo tse di tlhagang ko Mosego home. Then letlha la mafelelo ke di 15 tsa April 2017. Then ga ba tlhakantsha palo ya dintsho go fitlhetse gore ke batho ba le 23 ba ba setseng ba tlhokofetse mo nakong eo.
So what is the question?
As the clinical manager of Mosego home, did this concern you?
Yaka wena enelo wena o leng gore o clinical manager ko wena yo o leng gore o motlhokomedi mo. A seo ga sa ke sa go tshwenya. It did concern me.
Did you raise your concern with your director?
Ga o tshwengwa ke tiragalo e, a o ile wa leka gore o bue le ba e leng gore ba go okametse di director?
Ne ba kra ne re ga go na le dintsho ne re romela dilo tsena di mabitso a dintsho tseo go go bona.
When there would be a death, we will send the names of all the deceased to them.
Did you, apart from forwarding the records of the death, did you say to the director that you're concerned that there are too many that are dying?
Ntle le gore fela o itsise di director kgotsa le romele maina a batho ba ba tlhokofetseng, o ne o ba tlhalosetsa le bona di-director gore wa tshwenyega ke ka tsela e leng gore dintsho di nna dintsi ka teng?
Just hold
My
it
lady,
there.
before the witness can
Just hold it there. I've noted you. This thing of interrupting and then talking while the interpreter is interpreting or the question is not yet finalized. I wait first for the question to be finalized, and then from there, I will then give you the chance, Mr. Pitelo.
My lady, I'm going to object on the basis of relevance. I mean, what does this have to do with causation? The consent of this witness to, I don't get how he's taking this matter any further. How he's assisting this court, except maybe to prove something else which we don't know.
Yes, Ms. Asim.
My lady, we are here to look at the circumstances of the deaths of the 23. We've been told that the death rate prior to the marathon project at this home was 5 or 6 per year. We have
Yes, can the witness step aside, please? Yes, Mr. Sibara, I've noted you. Can Ms. Hasim finish?
We have facts in this record that there were 23 that died in the year that are part of this docket, which is quite a lot more than the norm. That probing the circumstances of that number of deaths is relevant to understanding the cause of death. What were the conditions at Moseko that contributed, or whatever the conditions were, we don't know yet specifically, that contributed to this number of deaths. I can't see how this is an irrelevant question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sibara, and if there is any other person, you can just raise your hand, Mr. Sibara.
As to please the court, my lady, I share the same view and the sentiments of Mr. Pitlela. The question by my senior was, first, were you not concerned about this death for that period of time which my senior had put? The witness has not been asked what was her concerned about. A blanket statement has been put to the witness, and now she's being taken to commit to whether she has raised this consent to the management. She specified that we completed a list. And I think it will be best if my senior will specify which specific patient, the cause of death of that specific patient, and what then caused the witness to be concerned. So that this court might be in a very good position to decide on the causation, which is an issue before this court. As it please the court, my lady.
Thank you, Mr. Sibara. Anybody else before I go back to Ms. Sim and Mr. Pitlela? Ms. Marriott or Mr. Late? I don't know whether Mr. Late is here today. Yes, Mr. Profi, I see your hand is also up. Let me note Mr. Pinar, Ms. Marriott, and then Mr. Profi. Yes. Mr. Pinar can go first.
May it please the court, my lady. My submission would be simple, that the questions been put by my learned friend, Ms. Hasim, is relevant, my lady. Because at this stage, I presume Ms. Hasim is still in developing her cross-examination towards a specific aspect or issue and point, my lady. And to object at this stage to the cross-examination, whilst it is relevant, I would submit is not proper, my lady. And we should grant our learned friend, Ms. Hasim, the opportunity to proceed with her line of cross-examination that she has specifically in mind, my lady, because the questions being put can be relevant to the decision ultimately required by this Honourable Inquest Court to make at the end when all the evidence is being adjudicated, my lady.
Thank you very much.
As the court pleases, my lady.
Ms. Marriott.
Thank you, my lady. I have no submissions to make pertaining to the objection.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Profi.
My lady, I couldn't take my hand down. Mr. Sabara and Mr. Prashida combined had raised my concerns, so I aligned myself with their submissions.
Thank you. Ms. Asi.
Thank you, my lady. My lady, if I'm going to be interrupted as I begin my cross-examination, then I'm not going to get to the point. And I am coming to the point of, not that any of these questions are irrelevant, but I have to develop my cross-examination. The question is put to the witness that there were a number of deaths. She says that she was concerned about the deaths. I'm about to probe her concern. I would like to have an opportunity to do that before moving on.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pitlela, in reply?
My lady, with respect, we must be mindful of the fact that some of the answers that may be elicited from that line of cross-examination could, of necessity, incriminate this witness, and I would then be entitled to inform my client not to answer that question if I feel that the answer that she will give might be self-incriminatory. Now, if we are talking about consents, the only possible way to develop that line of questioning is to then cast a shadow over how my client performed their functions or her duties. And that, my lady, has not been allowed in these proceedings. Okay. Now, the point here being that if the point, the thing, my lady, is I don't get the point of the line of questioning. And maybe my learned senior counsel can give us an indication of why she's going with this line of questioning. I mean, that is it's a fair request.
If I may, Mr. Pitlela, I think Ms. Hasim has just started her cross-examination. And in my view, I've listened to the submissions from every one of you, your objection and your learned friends regarding this issue. In my view, we should leave her to develop her cross-examination. And I feel that this question is relevant. And if you feel that as she continues, you have a problem with the relevance of it, you can highlight that to the court. But for now, I cannot see any unfairness in this question, taking into account the evidence that is already on record. We shouldn't forget what the purpose of an inquest is, right? This is not a criminal trial. I'll keep on repeating that. I don't want to educate you. You understand. Please, let's not forget what an inquest is. What is the purpose, right? This pertains to the number of deaths at this particular NGO. So we just want to know the information that she has, right? This was an employee at the NGO. I don't see how her response or her answer can incriminate her at this stage, right? The question is allowed. You may proceed.
Yes, the court, please.
My lady, maybe I'll be allowed to just get back to where I was and to...
Yes, just a second. If I don't see the witness. Ms. Marriott, can you assist us? Where is the witness? Okay, there she is. Yes. When we were interrupted, you had just testified about the number of deaths prior to the marathon project at Mosego, which you said it was like 5 to 6 patients per year. And as a follow-up to that, you were alerted to the fact that according to the information contained in the docket, at Masego from the 13th of May 2016 to the 15th of April 2017, there were about 23 patients who died. Yes, let me leave it here. I think for the interpreter to interpret that this is already on record. If you can just summarize it quickly.
Ono re sobukanya fela se dilo tse ne setse o di buile mme mogosinyana wa gopola mo bopaking ba gago tlhagisitse gore pele ga marathon project e dintsho ene e ka nna palo ya balwetse ba le batlhano go ya go le barataro mo lobakeng la jara. Then ga nna le potso e re mare go ya ka docket ya ko Mosego dintsho go tloga ka 2016 ka May go fitlhela ka April 2017 e nnile dintsho tse 23 re mo lobakeng leo.
Then you were asked as to whether, as a clinical manager of Mosego, does this not concern you? And you said yes, it did.
O bo botswa potso ya gore jaaka o le clinical manager a seo ga sa ka sa go tshwenya gore go na le dintsho tse dintsi o bo araba ka gore sile sa ntshwenya.
Then you were asked as to whether you did you ever raise your concerns with your director? And that's when you explained that when there were these deaths, the names were sent to your directors.
O botswa gore yaka o ne o tshwenyega yana ka dintsho tse a wile wa fetisetsa seo go baokamedi ba gago e leng di-director gore o a tshwenyega ka dintsho tse ore ka dinako tsotlhe ga go na le dintsho le ne le list e ne e romelwa ko go bona.
Then council wants to know as to whether, apart from forwarding these names to the director, did you ever tell them your concerns?
So potso re ne re le mo go yona e ne e botswa ke mmueledi ke gore ntle le gore o ile wa romela list lenaneo la batho la dintsho tse di leng teng a o ile wa bua le baokamedi ba gago di-director gore o tlo o ba tlhalosetse gore wa tshwenyega ka palo e leng gore e ya ata ya dintsho?
Did you?
A o ile wa ba tlhalosetsa seo kgotsa wa tlhagisa matshwenyego a gago mo go bona?
No.
No, I did not.
Continue.
What were you concerned about?
Wena ka ntlha gore o ne o tshwenyega ke eng se se ne se go tshwenya ka dintsho tse dintsi falang?
Sorry, I wasn't quite finished when you started, Madam Interpreter. The question is, she says she had concerns. What was she concerned about?
That was the question I asked. Wena o ne o tshwengwa ke eng ka dintsho tse dintsi falang tse matshwenyego a gago e ne le eng?
Matshwenyego ne ile gore ga ra tlwaela dintsho tse dintsi.
My concerns were that we were not used to so many deaths occurring.
Yes. Continue, Ms. Assin.
Thank you. Did you express this concern about so many deaths occurring to anybody else?
A gona gape le motho mongwe kgotsa batho bangwe ba o ileng wa tlhagisa matshwenyego a gago ka dintsho tse e leng gore di a ntsifala?
Ne re bua e le rona mo mmerekong gore re bona gore re leke motlhomong go na le go re leke go tlhokomela di-patient.
Gore a badiri mmogo le wena.
Re etse mmereko wa rona wa manese re ba tlhokomele.
Okay. We were talking as colleagues at work, as nurses, that we should do our job and make sure that we take proper care of the patient.
Thank you.
Just a second. Yes.
So in this discussion, you talk about the proper care of patients. Did you keep clinical records for every patient?
Jaaka o re o ile ne le bua ka gore le tlhokomele balwetse ba lena sentle. Re ana le ne le dira record ka dinako
Clinical records.
Clinical record mabapi le molwetsi ka mong ka maemo a gagwe. Yes, we did.
And in the clinical records, would you record when medication was given, what medication was given, food that was taken, and any injuries?
Mo reportong ya clinical record ya lena, a le ne le tsenyeletsa gore molwetsi o nwa medication o feng ka dinako tse di feng, o tshwanetse a ja dijo tse di feng, le gore o na le dikgobalo tse di feng.
Ne re kwala gore gore ne re na le pampiri ne re kgona go re ba checka ka yone pampiri ya gore ba na le dikgobalo tse dintseng ya gore re ba assessa. Ga sena kgobalo mo pampiring ne re kwala gore a gona sepe. Dijo ne re na le program ya go gore dijo ne go na le gore ka je go di patient di ja eng go tloga ka breakfast, lunch le supper.
Okay. We had if it is a pele mem khosnyana a re di kgaoganye re kgone gore di utlwagale sentle ne re buile ka dikgobalo le ka dijo re o tla bua tse di morago ke. We had a list or a paper that would check or assess the patients with, to check their injuries and jot it down if there are any. And we'd also have a list of food that they will eat each and every day for breakfast, lunch, and supper. Tswela pele Maitso.
Ke gore ka dijo ke bua ka gore ko kitcheneng ne le bone ba ne le menu ke tla bitsa gore ka je go jewa eng ka breakfast ka lunch go jewa eng ka supper go jewa eng se ne se le teng ne nna ko kitcheneng le mo dintlong.
Okay. At the kitchen, they will keep our, say it's a menu on which food will be taken for a day in a breakfast, supper, lunch, and they will also put the list of that menu in the houses.
Okay, so I'm not asking about the kitchen and the menu. What I want to know is the clinical records. Was it noted for each patient in clinical records
Re ne re sa bue re sa batle go itse thata gore ko kitcheneng ne ba ira menu o ntseng yang. Re batla go itse thata ka balwetse ka bo bona gore a le ne le tle le kwale gore molwetse o ja dijo tse di rileng, o jile dijo tse di rileng gompieno jalo jalo.
Ne re sa kwale gore o jele eng mara ne re kwala gore o jele sentle na ka jeko o jele sentle or re mo feedile.
Okay. We actually did not write down on what the patient would have eaten for the day, but we'll only write as to whether the patient did feed themselves or we had to feed the patient and whether the patient did eat their food.
Ne re kwala le gore o di feditse dijo tseo tsa gagwe tseo tsa na a filwe tsona.
We would write it down as to whether the patient managed to finish the food or not.
Thank you. And would you do this for every patient?
Ne le direla molwetse o mongwe le o mongwe ka mokgwa wa tsela eo.
Ga re kwala reporto mo di-fileng tsa bone ne re kwala le gore o ja sentle na.
Yes, we would do that for each and every patient when we check them and write it in their files.
Thank you. And would you do this every day?
Ne le dira jalo letsatsi le lengwe le le lengwe.
Ne re sa etse letsatsi ne re kwala di-reporto tsa bone ne gangwe mo kgweding.
We would only make their report once a month.
Gore ne re kwala general report ya gore o itshwere yang for kgweding, so mo kgweding mo ne re kwala gore o ja sentle ga je sentle.
Okay. We would make a general monthly report and we will write down as to whether the patient was behaving well and whether the patient was eating well.
Ona sa je sentle ke ene o ne re tla re etsa gore re montshe ngaka.
Okay. And the patient that would not be eating well, we would make sure that they would consult with the doctor. On the very same day on which the patient would not be eating well, they will consult the doctor.
Or remise ko clinic.
Or we would take the patient to the clinic.
Okay, so there were no daily reports for the food intake of the patients.
Go sena report e leng gore ne le dira letsatsi le letsatsi ka molwetse ka nosi gore o jile jang le gore o jile eng.
E ne tla nna teng ga re kwala reporto ka ene motho ga a sa ja ka letsatsi le ra ne re kwala mo be re a ya ko for bone bo botlhe ne seo but ne tla nna teng for o ka letsatsi le a sa jang sentle.
Okay. We would not make a daily report on the intake of the food, but on that specific patient that would not be eating that day, then we will make a report on that patient.
And did you
Yes.
Ma'am, in your statements, you also said that the patients came with medication, these particular deceased. Did you make a record of the administration of the medication to them every day?
Yes.
Wa re akere molwetse o mongwe le o mongwe o ne a tla le tekanyetso ya melemo ya gage e o a tshwanetseng gore a e tseye. So a le ne le ra record letsatsi le leng le le leng gore o nwa melemo e feng kgotsa medication o feng ka dinako tse di feng? Yes, we would do that.
Thank you. So when we look at the dates of death of these deceased, there are some months in which 5 die. And I'd like to take you to June, for example.
We are now on which page?
My lady, I haven't got there yet. I'm just...
Yes.
What I'm saying to the witness is that we've already said 23 died in the space of a year. And I'm further stating that in some months, there were 5 that died in a month. And I would like to turn to the month of June as an example, and then I will turn there.
Mem Hosian, re setse re tlhalositse gore mo lobakeng la 2016 go ya go 2017 go na le balwetse ba 23 ba ba tlhokofetseng. Mara o batla gore re lebelele thata mo kgweding ya June, because mo kgweding ya June
yes,
ke teng mo e leng gore go tlhokofetse balwetse ba le 5 mo lobakeng la kgwedi.
Which June? June which year?
Pardon me, my lady, June 2016.
June wa ngwaga wa 2016. Go tlhokofetse balwetse ba le 5 mo lobakeng la kgwedi.
Yes, continue.
In June 2016, the following deceased died. On 11 June 2016, Daniel Malan.
Ka 11 tsa June, go tlhokofetse Daniel Malan.
Daniel Malan.
Malan.
On 12 June.
Yes.
On 12 June 2016, Johannes Hlongwane.
Ka di 12 tsa June 2016 ke Johannes Hlongwane.
Yes.
On 20 June 2016,
Ka di 20 tsa June.
Lucas Motsweni.
Go tlhokofala Lucas Motsweni.
On 22 June 2016, Peter Mvundla.
Go tlhokofala Peter Mvundla.
Yes.
And on 27 June 2016, Rebecca Hlabati.
Ka di 27 June 2016 go tlhokofala Rebecca Hlabati. Ntse re utlwana mme Mogosinyana?
Ra utlwana.
Yes, I'm listening.
At the end of June 2016, were you concerned that so many patients died in that month?
So mo kgweding e ya June, ga e fitlha mafelelong, a o ile wa tshwenngwa ke dintsho tse dintsintsi tse di nnile mo kgweding e le nosi? Yes.
Did you speak to anyone about your concerns?
So ga o tshwenyega ka dintsho tse dintsi tse di diragetseng mo kgweding e le nosi, a gona le motho o ileng wa bua le ena wa mo bolelela ka matshwenyego a gago?
Yaka ke buile gore ne re bua re le manese gore re na le ka one matshwenyego a dintsho tse.
As I already testified that we discussed amongst ourselves as nurses about the concerns regarding the death.
Ms. Asim, I think we shouldn't repeat the questions because this question has been answered previously. If you can refrain from repetition of questions.
Thank you, my lady. If we look at the docket for Daniel Malan,
Daniel Malan.
I would like you to turn to page 7210.
Page 7210.
Thank you, Sasha.
Do you have it?
Yes, I am on that page.
And you'll see this is a discharge report from the Department of Health.
Key discharge report tlhagang ko lefapheng la tsa botshelo bo bontle, Department of Health. Go jalo.
And it has a handwritten note by Dr. Wadvala.
Ebile e kwetswe ka letsogo jalo ke Dr. Wadvala. Correct? That is correct.
The contents of the note, if I can read the handwriting, are as follows. Admitted to SFH as state patient after charge of assault of a child.
E kwetse ka tsela e latelang gore o amogetswe jaaka molwetsi wa puso morago ga gore a bonwe molato mo ka molato wa go betsa ngwana.
He was, and there's a triangle, moderate, intellectual disability.
Go ona a le mo dithutegong tse di lekaneng go raya gore nna tlhaloganyo tse di rileng tse dingwe a sa di tlhaloganye go ba go ira triangle.
During forensic observation and unfit to stand trial, and in brackets 1982.
Then bare ka nako eo ba dirang ditlhatlhobo tsa gagwe tse di latelelang tsa forensic ba fitlhelela gore maemo a gagwe a tlhaloganyo a ke se mo kgontse gore a ka emela go bua molato sentle a tlhaloganya dintlha tsotlhe go ya ka mo gare ga Ditsebana 1982.
He was reclassified to Section 9 in 1988 September.
O ile elwa tlhoko jalo go tloga ka September 1988.
In March 1992, he was transferred to Witpoort Care Center, where he remained until transferred to this facility in August 2015.
mo go elweng tlhoko maemo a gagwe a fetisetswa jalo ka March ka 1992 ko is it Witpoort?
Mm.
A fetisetsa ko Witpoort Care Center mo e leng gore o ile a nna teng
Until transferred to this facility in August 2015.
Oh, go fitlhela a ba a fetisetswa mo bookelong kgotsa mo lefelong la lena ka
2015 August.
2015 Agostos.
And just for the record, my lady, we see from the sticker, this facility is Randfontein Care Center.
Yes.
Ga ba re go fitlhela a amogelwa mo tlhokomelong ya lefelo la rona ba tlhalosa Randfontein Care Center ka gonne e beilwe setempe ka mo thoko.
He is low functional and needs supervision for ADL.
Ga a kgone gore a itlhokomele sentle ka bo yena ka ntlha ya gore o tseela kgakala ka tlhaloganyo.
Inappropriate behavior has not been noted in his years in institution.
Ga go ise go ele tlhoko mekgwa e meng e leng gore e tswile ka fo thoko ka lobaka leo a ntseng a amogetswe ka lona mo maokelong a tsa tlhaloganyo.
He was placed at Moseko Home as his family not available to care for him.
O rometswe ko Moseko Home ka ntlha ya gore o ne a sa tlhola a na le lesika le le ka mo tlhokomelang.
So, in other words, what we see is a patient who was institutionalized for many years, but appeared stable.
Sorry,
madam, let me just clarify what I'm saying. But according to the note...
Just a second, Mr. Sim. I think there was a time where you and the interpreter were talking at the same time. If you can just clarify that, because it's going to be a problem on record. Just rephrase your question or repeat it. The interpreter must just wait for you, or don't say a lot, otherwise it's not going to be properly interpreted. Thank you.
What the note records is that this patient was institutionalized for a long period. And it also notes that inappropriate...
Just a second, let the interpreter interpret.
Go tlhagelela gore go ya ka rekoto e molwetse o ile a bewa bookelong lobaka lo lo lelele.
Yes.
It also records that inappropriate behavior has not been noted in his years in institution.
Mare ba be ba kwala gape gore mo dingwageng tse a ntseng a beilwe mo bookelong bo go ne go sena mekgwa kgotsa ditiro tse e leng gore di mo maemong a siameng a tlhaloganyo tse e leng gore o ne a bonagala a di dira.
Yes.
And this is relevant because of the incident that you spoke about with the assault and the chair.
Me yaanong se farologane le bopaki bo e leng gore wena o bo tlhagisitse ba tiragalo e le ya setulo se ne se amega.
So I would like to take us then to his clinical records.
O batla gore re tsenelele jaanong mo clinical recordong ya gage.
My lady, I'm just finding the correct page reference. Apologies. Here we go. Okay. It begins at page 7202, my lady. So it begins with the admission assessment, and you can just scroll down.
Remo report ya gage ya clinical e simolola jalo ka gore o tlhatlhobilwe pele ga kamogela report eo.
And then as you scroll down, you come to page 7207. Where the clinical records are captured.
E simolotse jalo ko 7202 me ga o ntse o scrolla go ya ko fatshe re fitlha ko tsebeng eo ya 7207 ke mo e leng gore yaanong ba tlhalosa ka botlalo ka maemo le maitshwaro a gage.
But the pages are not scanned in order. So can we begin at page 7209 and work up?
Are ga ba ne ba scanna di page tse ga ba di scanna ka tatelano so dintlha di tla simolola sentle go tloga ko tsebeng ya 7209.
And we see, can you see that the first entry is 15 January 2016?
Ke gokotse jalo gore ke reporoto e dirilweng jalo ka di 15 tsa January 2015.
The next entry is 15 February 2016.
Letlha le le latelang ke di 15 February 2015.
Then 16 March 2016.
Then letlha le le latelang ke di 16 tsa March 2015.
And my lady, there's an objection.
Yes, Miss, is that Miss Marriott?
Thank you, my lady. My lady, we are referred to many documents, but I haven't received any questions for the witness. I don't know what my colleague wants this witness to answer to.
Yes, I haven't had any question. Let's just hear what she's going to say. She has not yet posed a question.
Thanks. I can ask a question without referring to the clinical records, but then it won't, it might not help the witness because she might not remember the clinical records. But if the court would prefer me to just ask the questions without demonstrating the question, the records first, I'm happy to do that.
We want to understand the question. Can you just continue and then to lay the basis so that we can understand? And then I see there is Mr. Sibara, there is Mr. Phihlela. Let me hear them. Because it's true, but we don't know where you are getting. We have to give you the opportunity. Yes, Mr. Phihlela, and then Mr. Sibara.
Yes, Your Ladyship, please. My lady, the issue that I have is this document that is being referred to, and how is it married to my client? Is she the one who compiled the document? Because the initial document was by Dr. Wadwala, and now we've moved on to another document. But I don't know if this document was done by my client or done by somebody else or whatever. So it's a question of relevance there.
Okay. Can I then also, let me hear what Mr. Sibara also wanted to say. Mr. Sibara?
Please, the court, my lady. I have noted that the senior referred us to page 7209 with a number of entries. Like now, the last entry is 16 March 2016. There's another entry now here, 15 January 2015. 2016, my apology. No question came out of this reference.
Yes, you are correct. Yes.
Entries. And what is wrong with those entries?
It appears everybody is now jumping the gun. We haven't had, you are correct, we haven't had any question. She was still going through the documents, but we will hear what the question is. I think yours is almost the same as that of Ms. Marriott. Now, can you deal with the question of Mr. Phihlela in relation to relevance and whether this document has been compiled by the witness? And yes, I hope the witness is not there. Ne? Okay. Miss.
My lady, these are the clinical records that come from Mosego Home. The witness was the clinical manager at Mosego Home. He's already testified that they kept clinical records.
Yes.
That she specifically stated when I asked her that they would record medication every day. Clinical records. I've taken already to general question about clinical records. I'm now going to specific clinical records. And what emerges from the clinical records is that there's once a month, there's an entry, and they are general entries orientated, eats and drinks well, and so on. It's treatment, but there's no daily entry for medication.
Okay, so that you can, okay, it's fine. Yes.
But what I was trying to do, my lady, is to remind the witness of the clinical record so she could see it before I put it out to her.
Before you pose the question. Okay. Mr. Phihlela?
My lady, the issue that I have then in that regard would be that one, it still informs us of the same thing. Who made these clinical entries? I mean, yes, she's a clinical manager, but she was not omnipresent. I mean, she's not the one who was every day there sitting, doing this and doing that. I mean, if you show me a report where she compiled with reference to all these documents, that would be fine. But now you are referring to entries in different handwritings, clearly made by different people, and then you want the court to draw a conclusion. That only goes towards credibility. If one
we don't even have a question yet. We don't know what she's going to ask her.
Yeah, but as she has explained.
Yes, I hear you what you're saying. Can I? Okay. Is that all from your side? Because you are just, I think, I hear you. Is that all? Can I give the others a chance before I close the issue? Anybody wants to deliberate on the issue? Mr. Van Bergen, I've noted you. Is there any other person other than Mr. Van Bergen? Miss Marriott, I don't know whether Mr. Lage is there, but would you want to say something also with regard to the issue before I close it?
My lady, just that the witness testified already that they made reports once a month pertaining to the status of the patient. That's all that I can assist the court with.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Van Bergen?
Thank you, my lady. My lady, as regards Mr. Phihlela's objection to the document in question having been compiled by a variety of people, presumably nurses or caregivers at Mosego Home, they would fall under the control of the nursing clinical manager, the witness in this instance.
Thank you. Yes.
Part of her duties would be to ensure that whatever their instructions were carried out. So she should be in a position to comment on the time intervals of these entries, the content of those entries, and whether there may perhaps have been other documents which more regular entries would have been made, perhaps on a daily basis. So my submission would be, my lady, that the questions thus far obviously are leading up to a point. And it is appropriate in my submission to refer to these documents because these documents are the records that were under the control of Mosego, well, of Mosego Home and under the control of this particular witness. I submit that the questioning should be allowed, my lady.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pichela, just your reply to all this, and I'm going to close the matter. Or just before I come to you, can Ms. Hasim, do you want to say something before I go to Mr. Pichela?
Sorry, my lady. It's just, yeah, it's a bit difficult to develop the questioning and to explain where I'm going.
I think you have made your point. I mean, if I don't know, unless if you want to add something.
No, my lady. I absolutely have to say I would just like an opportunity to ask a few questions based on these records.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pichela.
My lady, again, my submission would be that the only thing that this goes towards proving it's on a question of credibility, because it's meant to attack an answer that was given by the witness, where she indicated that they kept records of medication every day. And I think the Learned Counsel, what she wants to prove is that they were not keeping those type of records. And to me, that line of questioning was specifically precluded by this court. So I don't see what good is gonna come out of this line of questioning.
In my view, I'm going to allow these questions on the basis that these are clinical records from Mosego. And this witness, as a clinical manager, we know for a fact that clinical records from these different hospitals, these are written by the nurses who saw the patients. So I think the witness can be in a position to testify on this. So the question is allowed. I have not yet heard the question. Perhaps we should just leave the Ms. Hasim to continue with her questions. I think she was still referring to the dates on this document. Thank you. Proceed, Ms. Hasim, and we can call the witness back.
Thank you, my lady.
Yes, we can proceed.
Ma'am, what we see from the clinical records is that there was no entries for medication on a daily basis. Do you agree?
Go ya ka a clinical report e leng gore o ntsa go bontsha yona e re leng mo go yona e mo tsebeng ya 7209 go a tlhagelela mona gore ga gona reporto e ne dirwa letsatsi le letsatsi mabapi le medication ya molwetse. A wa dumela mma?
My lady, before the witness could answer.
Yes, can I hear Mr. Pichela?
My lady, again, now that the question is being asked, it's a question that has nothing to do with causation. It's a question that has to do with issue of credibility. Secondly, the learned senior counsel needs to refer the witness to a specific date and indicate that on this date, there was no entry made with regard to medication, so that the witness can then be able to explain that entry in particular. To put a general statement of this nature, to say, you see, having referred the witness to a plethora of documents, and then to say, do you see that there was no entry? Now, how is the witness supposed to answer? Because you're not giving a specific date. Give a date, indicate on the 5th of December, whatever, there is no entry in the clinical records to show that medication was administered on that day. Then the witness will be able to explain if she is able to recall. May it please you, my lady.
Can I hear Ms. Hasim?
My lady, please, I must be.
Just before I go there is Sibara, if you can handle the two at the same time. Mr. Sibara?
Can I reply to Mr. Pihlela first, please, my lady?
Come again?
May I please reply to Mr. Pihlela first?
Okay, I just wanted to hear what Mr. Sibara wanted to say. Maybe they are coming with the same point or adding to that.
Yes,
okay.
Please, the court. Should I go first or?
Yes, you should go first and then.
The court, my lady. Is it my senior's case that the patient who died at Museko, was it because they were not given medication? That would be a very fair question if that is the case.
Thank you, Mr. Sibara.
Their version, yes, please, the court, my lady.
Thank you. Ms. Asi?
Lady, what my learned friends are wanting me to do is to explain upfront exactly what I'm trying to do and then proceed. But when I try to proceed, they don't allow me. At the first question, the first objection comes and says, oh, well, yeah, now we see what she's trying to do. So it doesn't work like that. I need to be allowed to develop the questions. I asked one question and that wasn't the end of my questioning. That wasn't the end of my line of questioning. So, and furthermore, I did take the witness to the page. I referred to the several dates. Then an objection came saying, oh, but now you're just referring to all of these dates. And I was referring to the specific dates and I pointed out to the witness, the dates are 1 month apart. This is what they say, but there's no indication of medication, no daily entries for medication. So that is specifically in reference to the dates that I've taken, but I'm finding it quite difficult to have to explain what was already put forward to the witness. And I think that my learned colleagues need to be a little less defensive. We're just merely trying to find out what happened. And I'm being distracted from my line of thought.
Yes, okay, can I see Mr. Sibara's hand is still up. I don't know whether you still want to say something before I go to Mr. Pihlela and so that I can close the issue.
With due respect to my senior, my lady, we're not distracting our senior from a line of thought. We have been cautioned by this court that we should not beat about the bush when we cross-examine to try to confuse the witness. If this is the case of the families of the deceased that Museko was not giving patient medication, the court should be conscious that the old lady who's testifying here, she's being reminded of incidents which took place in 2016. She should be confronted with a fair question, which is direct and pertinent, and with a specific version that it is the version of the family that you were not giving patients medication. That is why they died. As please the court, my lady.
Thank you, Mr. Sibara. Mr. Pihlela?
My lady, to add further to what Advocate Sibara is saying, indeed, my main concern, my lady, is there are different dates. Now, at the end of referring the witness to those dates without indicating to the witness what is the relevance of those dates, a question is put to the witness. Do you see that from this date to this date, there are no entries made with regard to medication? For me, that is problematic. If we refer to, if those dates are taken in isolation and given the witness is given a question in that direction, then she could be able to maybe recall what happened or why was there no entry, why did she not query the fact that medication is not included?
I'm sorry, my lady. My very next question, and that's
okay, it's fine. Miss Hasim, just leave Mr. Pihlela to finish.
Thank you, Mr. Because the concern, we are talking of an elderly person. There is years and years that have elapsed. We are referring to entries that were not made by her own hand. And we are simply saying, do you see in 5 pages of these documents, there are no entries that are made? I mean, she'll then need to look, maybe give her an opportunity then to go through the document itself.
The court knows what to do, Mr. Pihlela. And okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to rule on the matter. I've heard all your submissions, and in my view, we should not distract this cross-examination. I'm going to leave. It's now a few minutes before 1 o'clock. I'm going to stop this proceedings because of the fact that we were told that at 2 o'clock the NPA's offices will be fumigated. So I'm going to ask the witness, if possible, to look at these pages. Is it from which page? If you can just refer to the pages. And when we come back, Ms. Hasim should proceed with a cross-examination of the witness. I just want the witness to also have that opportunity to look at these pages where Ms. Hasim is referring her to. And I don't think Mr. Sibara and Mr. Phihlela understood what Ms. Hasim wanted to do. If we can just leave her to cross-examine the witness.
Ask the court, please, ma'am.
Thank you very much. If we can just refer the witness to those pages, and what will happen is that we will then give her an opportunity to look at the documents, and then you will start with this cross-examination on my. Are we proceeding on Monday, Ms. Marriott, with the witness?
Yes, my lady.
Yes. So I wanted to get an opportunity of looking at all these clinical records from Moseo, taking into account that I don't know, these ones were, if what she could do is to look at, I don't know whether it will be possible for her to look at all of them. I don't know what Ms. Hasim is going to ask her, but these ones in particular refer to Mr. Malan. If you can just refer her to the pages, because I take into account that her evidence could be very long, taking into account the pages that were, the documents that were submitted yesterday. So that is why I'm saying I don't see any unfairness to the questions. What is important is that she must be given the opportunity to look at the documents that she has been referred to before she can answer the questions.
Thank you.
Yes, you may please do so. I think you have just indicated that the pages haven't been scanned in order.
That's correct,
So
my lady.
you started from page 7209.
That's right, my lady. I think that might be confusing my learned friends. There are 3 pages of clinical notes. They begin on page 7209.
Yes.
And because they scanned incorrectly, you have to move upwards to
Yes,
7207.
you can just say the next page will be so that the interpreter can interpret this to the witness. The next page will be, I've noted the page, the first page, 7209.
7208 would be the next page.
Yes.
And 7207, the third page. There are 3 pages of handwritten clinical records.
Where is our interpreter?
I'm here, my lady.
Yes, I don't know. You've said a lot, but you can just interpret what is relevant.
Memo Khosinyana, re batla go kopa gore o go lebedisisa dintlha tse di latelang go ya ka reporto e gore e tle re ga re boa ka mosupologo re tswella pele ka gore wena o fane ka bopaki ba gago o bo o ikgopoditse le gore o kgone go arabela le dintlha tse ding mare ba batla gore re lebelle sentle go ya ka direporto mo tsebeng eo ya 7209 go bane clinical report e leng gore e dirilwe ka Remalane ga ba iskena go ya ka tatelano ba simolotse ko tlase ba ya go godimo so tsebe ya ntlha ke 7209 e latelelwa ke 7208 ebe e ya go ema ko 7207 ke ka mokgwa di tshwanetseng di be ke ka mokgwa di latellanang ka teng a mo go tsona maitso a re mo go me go senyana.
Do you understand?
Okay.
O
tlhalogantse me go senyana. I do understand, my lady.
Thank you. I want to hear, I saw there was a hand from Mr. Phihlela.
My lady, I only wanted to mention that the witness does not have access to case line, so perhaps maybe if copies can be made for her. That was the only plea that I wanted to put forward.
Yes, Ms. Maria.
I am making copies for the witness, my lady.
Okay, thank you very much. On that note, the proceedings will therefore, before I adjourn the proceedings, the witness can be warned, and then the proceedings will be adjourned until Monday morning.
Me kgetsi e tla tswelela pele ka mosupologo. Me wena me Mokgosinyana gopola gore ka mo tlase ga kano mme tsotlhe tse e leng gore di diragala mo teng ga puisano e di fela mo teng ga puisano e ga o bue sepe ka tsona ko gae, and then di-copy tseo re mo go me Mokgosinyana di-copy tseo ke tsa gore o go ikgopotsa o kgone gore o tlo go fana ka dikarabo ka mosupologo. A utlwagatse Maetso? I think the witness mic is mute. It's muted, my lady.
Yes, Mrs. Mokgosinyana.
A utlwagatse Maetso? Okay, I understand, my lady.
Thank you very much. The proceedings are therefore. Did you want her with regard to the oath that she has taken?
Yes, my lady, I did.
Okay. The proceedings are therefore adjourned until Monday morning, the 16th of May, 2022. Thank you very much.
May it please the court.
Yes, the
May it please the